Well, there you have it again, the MODUS project, a project that is all about enhancing students' mobility across educational boundaries through recognition, to make life easier, to make recognition easier for students. And that is why we've heard a lot from academics yesterday, from institutions, from experts, but of course, we also want to hear from students themselves, which is why I'm delighted now to be joined by Tobias Berg, who's with the German Federal Student Council Conference on economics. Tobias Berg, I understand there was a pre-conference on this very issue of international recognition. First of all, thank you for joining us. We'll be delighted to hear the results of that conference. Could you share some of those with us?
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share some results of our pre-conference. We have met on Wednesday this week to discuss the student perspective on recognition. Maybe I just give a quick outlook of what we have done. We had a roundtable in the beginning with some of the organizations that are mainly part of student discussions on recognition, so the European Student Union, Erasmus Student Network, and the German Accreditation Pool. We had discussions on different parts of the learning process, on different types of learning, so formal learning, informal learning, non-formal learning. And then we continued in several workshops, quite similar to what the main conference is doing, on different aspects, for example, on the aspect of volunteering, on the aspect of non-formal learning. And these workshops were comprised into a structured open space where we discussed solutions from student perspective, what should happen to enhance recognition in student mobility.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tobias, for giving us a quick recap of the results of the pre-conference. Also with us is Muth. She's the coordinating committee. She's with the coordinating committee of the Student Accreditation Pool. Liv, great to have you with us as well. What was your impression from the conference? What did you take away?
Thank you very much. The conference was a great opportunity to get in touch with different organizations that are all working in some form with recognition procedures and also raising the students' concerns and ideas in that field. So it was a great platform for exchange for us.
It sounds like a great opportunity indeed. Let me bring in Anita Lehner now, who's a student participant and represents the Netzwerk Pluralist Economics. Anita, let's also hear from you. What were the main takeaways for you from this pre-conference?
Well, I think that most of us are on the same side and that we see the same issues, but also that there is a strong community of people working towards helping students with recognition and simplifying processes and having a look on the possibilities that are out there.
Tobias, when presenting the results from those workshops for the viewers who are joining us here today, what are the main takeaways that you'd like to share? You already mentioned some of them, but if you had to create a headline, if you will, 3-4 headlines about the pre-conference, what would those be?
Yeah, so first of all, we discussed about hurdles for recognition from a student perspective and also some hurdles for mobility from the student perspective. And then, of course, we dove deep into the different topics. So, for example, volunteering was a big issue. So what competencies do we gain as students when we engage in student representation or engage in student clubs? What competencies do we gain for our study programs, and how can we as students formulate how we can recognize these things? I think we also have a presentation on the results of the workshops that the workshop leaders will present in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely, and very much delighted to hear about those presentations. Of course, Liv, you're going to go first?
Yes, exactly.
Go ahead, please.
I cannot see the slide yet. I'm just waiting a second. Okay, perfect. Now I see everything.
Excellent.
So yeah, it's a pleasure. Yeah, it's a pleasure for me to share with you the results of one of the 3 workshops we had in the student pre-conference, which was about the recognition of informal learning and volunteering. The workshop was prepared together with Thomas Muth, Evgenii, and myself, Muth. And during the workshop, we discussed how, in particular, student representation in the form of volunteering contributes to competency acquirement of students. So, in the first step, we were discussing, or we were actually brainstorming on a digital flip chart, which kind of competencies can be acquired through volunteering with that focus on student representation. And we could identify, besides also subject-specific skills when students are engaged in some subject-specific volunteering initiatives, that there's a vast set of soft skills that can be acquired. And I grouped them into different topics. They go from the management and administration skills over communication skills. So everything that is associated to student representatives organizing their own clubs, organizing events and projects, and everything that is associated with those events and projects. For example, like the financial administration, but also legal and technical skills. In terms of communication skills, it was evident that student representatives need to have the skills of communication to be able to navigate in a socially and culturally diverse environment. And one of their main tasks is actually to lobby, advocate, and be diplomatic in regards to discussion with other stakeholders, while being true to their own group of peers. Other skills that are also part of the skills acquired through volunteering are social skills. So whenever student representatives engage in the representation, they don't do it alone, they do it in a team. So they speak on behalf of their peers, so they need to connect with their peers through empathy, through teamwork. They need to network, they need to kind of form the connection to their peers to gain the information they need for making evidence-based policy recommendations, for example. And last but not least, student representatives also acquire skills in terms of governance. While they are doing community services, they learn about how to lead and organize official democratic votes in their student representative bodies. And also they learn about how within universities and higher education institutions, the political processes and structures work and how they can engage as a very important stakeholder group. In the next step, we discussed about the national practices of the participants in terms of recognition of volunteering activities. And in our group, so in the set of students we had in the pre-conference, largely volunteering was not recognized at their higher education institutions, but also some of our participants shared practices that they know about, that they were involved in themselves, or that they have heard about from other higher education institutions about how volunteering could be recognized. One of which was that the volunteering work is not per se recognized in terms of the skills acquired, but more unspecifically as a volunteering block or module that can be granted ECTS. Another interesting initiative was from a German university where service learning initiatives were implemented, where the students had the freedom to also do volunteering activities. Last but not least, there was also one example of the German Studium Generale, so general studies, in which volunteering activities can be recognized alongside where other students could choose language courses or whatever their interest is in. When we moved from analyzing the status quo to how it could be going into the future, we identified some key aspects. So the first one is about promoting the both individual and also the societal benefits of volunteering. And therefore, a mindset in higher education institutions need to be developed that promotes this gain of soft skills and self-management skills and all the skills I presented before to be of importance for students, but also for the institutional functioning. The third point we identified is to raise the awareness of the necessity So not only having the mindset, but also to constantly remind everyone who's associated to higher education of the necessity of those skills. Another point we identified was that it would be important to structurally include recognition of volunteering in academic programs. This goes hand in hand with the next point, to increase the study program's flexibility in order to support volunteering work. So once study programs have some form of windows or courses in terms of like the general studies where students can freely choose what they would like to do, this gives more opportunity for various students to engage in volunteering to an extent that they can align with their other obligations. This also brings me to the next point, which is about increasing the diverse student participation through recognition. So once volunteering activities can be recognized, this also eases at least a bit the burden for some students that have other obligations to engage in volunteering activities and have their voices heard. If we move forward, it's important to develop flexible ways to test the competencies acquired through informal context, so that it's not always like this very formal approach of checking the competencies, but also accepting diverse documentation of the student representatives, which kind of skills they have acquired. One very important point as well was raised by the participants, and that is about that the procedures in terms of recognition need to provide certainty in advance. So before the students decide on getting engaged, students might want to know if a recognition later on is possible or not in order to make a decision. And last but not least, the point at the bottom of this slide is about developing a nationally and internationally recognized certification system for the engagement outside of the very standardized curriculum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Liv, for this very comprehensive, very interesting presentation that you have shared with us. Thank you so much indeed. It is my understanding, Anita, that you also have prepared a presentation that you would like to share with us.
Yes, I did. So I hope it will show. Yeah. So I will. Oh, that was a bit too fast. I will tell a bit more about the third workshop we took. It was about a recognition of new learning formats. Oh, okay. The workshop was facilitated by Irina Duma from the European Students' Union and Claudia Klick and Sven Hein from the Federal Association for Physician Assistants Unit Germany. However, they can't be here, unfortunately, so I will present on their behalf first of all, and then I will give a few remarks from to the topic of new learning formats from my own professional experience. Liv already mentioned a lot of the aspects that also come with the question of recognizing new learning formats. So Irina, first of all, presented to us the report of Bologna with the student eyes from the European Student Union and showed us some of the results. So maybe the most important result was that the complexity of the recognition process is as a main obstacle, or maybe the major obstacle. And as Liv said, the uncertainty for the students to know if something will be recognized is a big hurdle and leads them often to just don't do recognition because they might apply for it but don't know for weeks or months if the recognition will be put through, and so they actually. We learned about some cases in which this leaded to an additional semester in their studies. And so, the uncertainty is really a big issue. And also the duration of the process, it takes sometimes really long. What could be a solution to this problem is automatic recognition. So currently, at least in Germany, all recognitions or most recognitions are individual decisions by the examination office or committee. And through automatic recognition and providing more information in advance, it could help the students really. However, we do see that it is an additional burden in the beginning for the bureaucracy. However, we hope in the end it also will lead for them to be more efficient and have less work. And also to point out that internships are a big part in most study programs by now, and there the recognition process is usually very much standardized and went through very fast. So maybe also applying this procedures for other recognition cases might be a solution. The second big hurdle is students, but more from the higher education institutes, but also affecting the students very much. And it is that we saw a big lack of trust between higher education institutes in the quality of the teaching, and if the course really teaches the content the university wants to see. And also that this question or this trust issue comes a lot with the question of which degree program the student is in. So bachelor and master programs to recognize in bachelor and master programs is a lot more difficult than in PhD programs. And so we generally would hope that the university also allows more flexibility in bachelor and master programs and put more trust in their fellow universities in their quality of teaching. But we also see that, especially with new learning formats, it might increase the lack of trust at the moment, especially all this online teaching that just came up with the pandemic and increased a lot is still very new and not standardized. And so the universities and the differences between the courses are huge. So the universities might trust these new learning formats even less. So I will come to this later on again. There's one other point we talked about. This was joint or common degrees. Some of the participants are enrolled in joint or common degrees, and they have been well established in some countries, and all the procedures went really well, while in other countries they are still quite new and not working out that well. So there is really it depends really in which country you're living, and so we just hope that countries will reach out, keep up also with this development and improve, and the countries where it's not going that well at the moment will improve there. So to give you also a bit, or to come back to the question of new learning formats, I will talk shortly a bit about massive open online courses and the recognition of them and what hurdles there are. So just a reminder, I work for the Network for Pluralism in Economics, which is a student organization promoting interdisciplinary, critical and problem-oriented economics. And we use recognition maybe a little bit slightly different than most people are used to it. So our idea is that, or the certificate project where I'm working in, uses recognition as a tool to allow students to include pluralist courses in their learning path. And therefore we provide where we use pluralist university courses and work together with universities and as professors, but also provide own pluralist teaching, for example, a summer academy and new learning formats like MOOCs. So we produced recently a MOOC, and we try to allow students to take this massive open online course and also to recognize it in their studies. So there are some hurdles, as I already said, and I will a little bit elaborate on them. So with MOOCs, we have definitely the problem of ensuring the quality of teaching. So the universities know what sort of what content the courses have and how that fits into their study program, but also the platforms which usually provide the massive open online courses only provide a participation certificate where you first have to pay for, and secondly, it's not they don't verify who gets the certificate if the person really took the course, and so mostly the certificates are worthless for recognition. So you need to find an accepted examination way. So, and not only in this case, but in generally in the whole discussion on last Wednesday, we figured out, or we learned that learning is only what is signed, stamped and sealed and written down somewhere. And if you don't have a piece of paper saying what you learned, it's like not worth that much, which is quite unfortunate. But there are some possibilities how to recognize MOOCs. Or we actually thought about some ways which should show up now, but they don't. So I hope maybe the technique could. No. Yes. The first possibility is the cooperation with universities. So the university actually writes facilitates the course in their regular curriculum and allows students also from other universities to join in. So some universities also expect the students to enroll as a secondary student and charge them for this, which can be a problem. The second possibility is to certify massive open online courses by other organizations like ours, though it's really hard to get the resources and the acceptance by the university. And the most promising, but still in development, could be blockchain. Actually, there are a few projects at the moment, and so possibly this is a future possibility to ensure the quality and actually to certify the learning in a massive open online course. So to wrap all this up, there are just a few or a little appeal I want to give to all the participants. Still, I cannot move unfortunately not. Yeah. So I would like to ask all participants here to remember that cooperative spirit of the science community, and also to put more trust in other scientists and other universities. Also, until there is a bulletproof way of certifying learning in new learning formats to provide alternative ways like reports or essays. And in the end, I would ask you to cut some slack to your students and trust that they actually wanted to learn something and did learn something, also when they're not in the university itself. So thank you very much. And I will give back to Ali Aslan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have trust in your students. I think that is a very useful, worthy, and strong appeal to our participants and viewers. Thank you so much, Anita, for this very comprehensive overview of the workshop that you took part in. We had 3 workshops, and the last one, the findings, the results, will be presented by Evgenii Puchkov from the Erasmus Student Network, who's joining us now. Evgenii, welcome to you as well. You have the floor.
Thank you. Our workshop was devoted to the obstacles and issues that different groups can have with regards to their mobility experience. And it was hosted by me. I am the liaison officer for quality education and lifelong learning for ESAN International, and by my colleague, Leon Hill, who is the representative of ESAN Germany. So what we did, that we first identified some, not all, some groups that have mobility access issues, and we tried to brainstorm some policy proposals for different groups. And with regards to groups that we discussed is, first of all, first topic that came up is financial disadvantage. Second was the students with disabilities. Third one, which is very dear to my heart as I'm from Russia, is the mobility between European Union and non-EU countries. And fourth, I would say catch-all group was the students with different disadvantaged backgrounds. Rural families, single-parent families, first person in their family to get higher education experience, students who need to take care of their families, etc., etc. So we talked about different issues. I won't go through them in detail, but I'd say that when we analyzed the outcomes to present it to you today, that some of them were applicable to the vast majority of the groups. And first that came up was better information provision with regards to mobility opportunities, work opportunities while on mobility, etc., etc. One of the ideas that came up that might be interesting is that there should be some kind of guideline established on a national level or even higher to actually state which information should be provided, and then universities can go and as they are the ones who know the best the situation on the ground to for information. Obviously talks about financial issues. Obviously topic of additional scholarships of any kind also came up with regards to those with financial disadvantage. Also the way those money are being paid out to participants was also called out as even if get the scholarship after you arrive to the country, it does not really help you to move to the country and set up in the country where you are going on mobility. Another hot topic which came up was housing support. And recognition, as the main topic of the conference is recognition, also came up a lot in the discussions. What we know as the Erasmus Student Network is that the percentage of recognition is still not as high as we would like to have seen. And this is very evident from our research when we see that, for example, nationalized professions have a lot of issues with mobility recognition. And when they know that they are not being able to get those results recognized, they obviously are not as interested or as able to go to the mobility as they would love to. Same goes, for example, as well for mobility to between basically we're talking about Erasmus program countries and partner countries, and we see there that the percentage of recognition falls, and this is also a big topic to discuss and to handle. Unfortunately, we're not able to provide some concrete policy solutions in that regard. But what we did talk about is, for example, for nationalized professions are mobility windows. So rearranging of curricula in such a way so that the students can have a semester or two where they can go abroad while there is no fundamental courses taking place at their home country. Etc., etc. And what also was highlighted very strongly is that the role of student organizations. They obviously hold a first and formal point of contact with international students and those students in the home university who want to go on the mobility. And one of the recommendations that we would like to put out to universities is also engage with the student representatives and student organizations and don't hesitate to collect this informal feedback to have another data point on how the situation in your higher education institution is with regards to mobility issues, experience of international students, recognition issues, and be able to probably implement some policy decisions in your particular higher education institution that might alleviate that situation. And basically, this is all for me. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I give the word back to the studio. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Evgenii, and of course to Liv and Anita for presenting the results of the 3 workshops. I think we got a better understanding, a great understanding of what you all talked about at the pre-conference. Tobias, anything you would like to add on top of those very great presentations? I think your microphone is off.
Sorry.
No worries.
Better now. I think the main takeaway that we had from the pre-conference was that we would like to facilitate trust into the students and to facilitate new learning formats and recognition of these ones in a flexible way. Because mostly the problems that occur with mobility and recognition is that the processes are not flexible enough to incorporate new things and maybe also innovative things for the students, and also to maybe have a mindset of including the students into the process of recognition, into the process of how to apply for recognition in order to have like an overall success story with recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, all 4 of you, you have the great opportunity to address many of the experts in academia, in international organizations who are dealing with the issue of international recognition. Liv, what would be your appeal? What would be your message beyond the comprehensive results that you have provided from a personal level as a student? What would be your appeal to those experts joining us right now?
Thank you very much. I think my main message would be communication is key. So students need to be informed, academic staff needs to be informed, administrative staff needs to be informed. There need to be a direct communication channel of all of those to really harvest the full potential of recognition within higher education institutions. And with these more short communication ways, maybe bureaucracy can also be decreased and more students would feel comfortable going away of recognition as well.
Yeah. Evgenii, what about you? What would be your plea? What would be your request, your recommendation to our audience this morning?
Look, first of all, I completely emphasize with what has been said right before me. Well, I already said, and I want to emphasize it again, that the students are not, also not only the recipients of some kind of educational benefit, right? They're also partners, and they need to be engaged as well in those policy discussions on recognition, on how to better the student experience. And obviously, we're aware that there is a lot of work which is being done on the international level. And we would very much like to see, I think, that this international work would actually trickle down to the students' level to actually alleviate the issues that we all see.
Yeah. Tobias, do you feel that the students' perspectives, that the student voice is not sufficiently heard and taken into consideration here?
I mean, at the conference, we are very happy that we have this opportunity.
No, beyond that, of course.
Yeah. In our universities, I think we have great opportunities to bring in the student voice, but of course, in the design of the recognition policies and in the design of the processes, I think the student voice could be heard more, could be heard structurally more, and could be included more into the political process in order to make it a success for all.
Yeah. Again, the appeal to our audience members, of course, also students out there, if you want to ask questions, please do so in the conference chat, and I'll be happy to forward them to our 4 participants here. Anita, in your presentation, you had already sent out a message, if you will, an appeal to the participants here this morning. Also, the same question to you. Do you feel that your voice, that the student's perspective is not being sufficiently taken into account here?
I think, unfortunately, sometimes yes. I feel that the students are only seen as appealing to the bureaucracy, to the administration and the professors, and not being taken as a equal partner. And also they're in their wish for individual study pathways and decisions about the content of their studies is not taken into consideration enough. So it really depends on the university, it depends on the study program, and I feel that there is a slight change, and I hope just this path will continue to go down.
Yeah, let's go beyond the abstract. Let's make it personal, if you will. Who amongst the 4 of you have had that experience personally, where you tried to, where you were entangled in this bureaucracy of international recognition and encountering the difficulties and obstacles? Liv, do you have a personal story to tell here?
Yeah, my personal story there is quite limited to very formal exchange programs like Erasmus or an internship abroad, which was also all with a learning agreement, which very much helped the recognition procedure later on and gave me certainty. I can imagine if that is not the case, this uncertainty, especially when giving up your living space, when moving to another country, learning another language, that is a big risk to take if the recognition later on is not clear or certain.
Tobias, what about you? Have you had personal experiences that you'd like to share with?
Yeah, so as I'm studying a double degree program actually in Belgium and in Germany, and I'm quite at the end of the program, I can look back to the time, and I want to emphasize on one thing that Evgenii said, the hurdles for mobility. At my case, the Erasmus Plus grant was issued to me, I think 4 months after I went into the mobility phase. So that means that in these 4 months, I didn't get any support, any financial support, which means that other students that I actually know had to go back to their country and couldn't continue with mobility because the financial grant was not issued to them. So it's on very few. It's on a lot of levels. Mobility can be hurdled and can be a problem for people if bureaucracy is not tangled down.
Evgenii, what about you? Any first-hand experience that you'd like to share?
Look, this is a funny story because despite me being volunteering in a student organization which is directly related to mobility, I have never had a formal mobility experience on the university level, only at the school level. But what I can share you is an anecdote from one of my former members, my good friend. She came back from the mobility, and when the recognition procedure started back home in Russia, she got marks scored very, very down from what she expected. So recognition was full, but the marks were not in line with each other. And we stepped in, and with the International Relations Office, we realized that the academic office went and looked at the equivalence of grades from a different country. And we had to show them that they are looking at the wrong table. So that's my anecdote, not personal, but the one I was involved in.
Thank you so much, Evgenii, for this anecdote. Interesting indeed. Anita, also bring you in here to wrap it up. Any personal experiences, encounters, anecdotes that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, actually, I recognized a few things, and beside the fact that it took quite long, it worked out quite well in the end. But I might share some experience from my network with you. As I told you, we have a summer academy every year, and so we had one participant from our network going to their recognition office and asking them in advance, hey, can I will do this workshop there, and can I get it recognized? And they were like, yeah, that looks fine. And yeah, in the end, she decided not to recognize it, but we had another student from the same university, and she went also to the office, but afterwards, unfortunately, and went to a different administrative person, and this person was like, no, absolutely not. We do not recognize courses from outside universities, like from a private organization. And so in the end, we don't know what the legal status exactly would have been. So I'm not a lawyer, but we felt it didn't sound that right, but we could not do very much. So in the end, she was the person who will maybe have to add another semester to her studies. So it can go both ways, and that's my experience.
Yeah, interesting indeed. Tobias, we actually have a question here in our chat from Markus Lamprecht. He's saying, during the pandemic, it became more difficult for students to learn about participation possibilities. What ideas do you have to increase student participation on all levels? You want to take that?
Yeah, thanks. So I think this is a very important point, because if we want to be engaged in processes and in policies, then we also have to be, as students, have to be ourselves engaged and to continue to engage in different student representatives. I have also seen the same thing, that during the pandemic, due to online courses, due to online in general, a lot of students didn't participate in student representation. I think the key is to show the students the communication on a university level between university leaders and the students, and to show them that they can make an impact in engaging for things also during the pandemic. And for mobility, I think hybrid mobilities or online mobilities are also very useful for students to get the international feeling of things. So from this perspective, I think there was a good exchange between students and university leaders during the pandemic, at least from my point of view.
Let me pose a question here to wrap it up as a final thought. Looking into the future, we talked a lot about the status quo and what can be improved. Let's look ahead. And I want to give all of you the opportunity to chime in here. Liv, let's start with you. What will be your next steps in establishing recognition policies in the organizations you are engaged in? What are the next steps after this pre-conference that you've held?
I would say there was already quite a lot of things done in the past that are written down in policy papers, for example, in advices to different committees, different organizations. So one point on the agenda would be really trying to implement those and raising awareness of what was already done, because there's quite a lot out there already that can be used as a basis for how students see the situation. And one thing, as I said before, communication is still very high on the agenda, to promote those platforms for exchange where students can engage and have their voices heard and taken into account.
Yeah, so interesting. You say the framework is actually there. It just needs to be utilized. It needs to be implemented. Evgenii, what about you? What are your next steps in establishing recognition policies in your organization?
So once again, I want to emphasize with everything which was said before. Our ESN has also published a lot of research, a lot of policy positions, and we would also very much would like to see all our recommendations being implemented. But obviously, there are two things. There is first national level, and then there is, let's say, supranational, international level. And on the national level, each of our countries would love to be involved in the recognition procedures. And from the international level, we are trying very hard to get our national level of our organization being involved. And this is an appeal to contact national ESN organizations to work with them on that issue. And on the international level, once again, we see the development of different instruments, those within the EU, those internationally, like the Global Convention on Recognition. And from our side, we would very much like to see them implemented. And from the student side, we would try to push everybody involved into getting those on track.
Thank you so much, Evgenii. Anita, future steps, next steps that lay ahead for you?
Yes, I think we will go. We will look at two different perspectives. The one will be the students and the members of our network, just raising awareness about how recognition works and what are the steps, and providing them with even more information, and also helping them in finding their way to navigate through recognition. And I think the other side will be to talk more to universities, raise awareness with them. And I think, as Liv already said, communication is really important, and it's just very important that you talk, and we talk in advance with the universities, and just get them the information they need beforehand.
Tobias, as the moderator of the pre-conference, you get the last word. Also, the same question goes to you as far as the next steps are concerned. What are you thinking of kicking off? What are you thinking of implementing?
Yeah, so first of all, my organization wants to stay active in the Modus project, because it's a great opportunity to also raise our voice as students and as student representatives. And then our plan is to also go more onto the empirical side and to evaluate with the students that we represent and create transparency, what are the actual hurdles, and then communicate this to leaders in the respective field. And then also I think the connection between the student representation organizations is very important. And that is one takeaway from the pre-conference also, and maybe also from the conference here from the main conference, that our network together and the connection between different organizations that work on the same topic is very crucial to move forward.
Tobias Berg, Liv Muth, Evgenii Puchkov, and Anita Lehner, thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much for sharing the findings of the pre-conference. And I think I'd like to echo what Grit Rota wrote in the chat. She says, "Well done, students. Your presentations prove once again that exchange is most fruitful when it occurs across communities and includes the perspective of different groups," something that I think all listeners, all viewers out there this morning can subscribe and sign off to. Thank you so much for participating, and all the best to you, and good luck in your future endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you.